So hi, welcome to the Good Noise Podcast. I'm Shane,
I'm Glory.
and we're here with,
And I'm Harry from Weatherstate.
and we're gonna ask some
Cheers, guys.
questions today about their upcoming album, Never Better. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
Yeah, we're absolutely buzzing. I mean, it feels like it's a real long time coming, obviously, with the pandemic and, how long the whole thing took to actually write and obviously record and everything like that. So it was a long time coming. We're just desperate to get it out there now. So yeah, really excited.
For sure.
How long have you guys been working on this thing?
Well, some of the songs date back to as far as like 2019. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, most of it we wrote during the pandemic. We had probably about 4 or 5 songs beforehand, but we tried to use that time in lockdowns and stuff just to really kind of like write as much as possible. Obviously, it affected how we wrote because normally we'd be together, but we couldn't do that. So yeah, I'm sure we'll get into it a bit more later, but it completely changed the whole kind of way we do things. So it felt really kind of alien to us, but yeah, it's just really cool to finally actually be able to play them together as a band, you know?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that must be awesome. So is there any meaning behind the album name or cover art?
Yeah, so I've I've always liked the kind of idea of it being kind of a bit tongue in cheek, just like almost like sarcastic and pessimistic. Our first that record was called Born a Cynic, our first full length. So this one really was supposed to be kind of, mega sarcastic and, the opposite of reality when, people ask you how everything is, say never better, but
Mm-hmm.
really having a pretty shit time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, it's more like a kind of like satirical kind of like coping mechanism, I'd say, of yeah, it's more supposed to be a kind of like hyper negative, just kind of just like, is what it is kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We really wanted to capture that with the art as well. Obviously, it was something that I had in my head that I wanted to kind of like direct. That I wanted it to be a kind of guy, like at a kind of in a party environment where he should be having a good time. I kind of referenced like bands like Save the Day and stuff in terms of their art, where they're all like on like a sofa and they're all like kind of like the guys that are kind of like that. With them, it was a bit more kind of at like a kind of frat party, and they're the kind of like losers that don't really fit in. With this, it wasn't so much that; it was more just the fact that like it's supposed to be like a celebration of negativity kind of thing. He's holding a balloon with a smiley face, but it's not quite a reflection of how he is inside, kind of thing.
Mhm. Okay,
Mm.
makes
All
sense.
But
right.
yeah,
So can you tell us a little about your writing process for this album?
yes. So normally it would work that I'd myself and Callan and the other guys would obviously kind of write ideas from our kind of bedrooms, and then we kind of take them to band practice and we kind of would play them and kind of evolve the songs from there. But with this, it was just done in a completely like different way. We worked with a lot of the songs, the kind of like shell of them, kind of ready beforehand. That where we worked on them in our own time separately, and recording demos, pinging them to each other, adding bits. But they really come to life when we started working with Alan Day,
Mhm.
which was
Mm-hmm.
awesome. So he was he was kind of fundamental in terms of the kind of review process of the writing, and he also added stuff like from the ground up. So there's a few of the songs that we kind of had like quite basic ideas, and we would start working on like late night video calls and stuff with him. And it's just amazing that the technology is there for us to be able to do that. He could have his mixing desk up. We would see that, and he'd be playing ideas and adding like layers onto stuff that we already had. And we'd be saying, yeah, it's kind of cool, or like, absolutely, that's amazing. Let's run with that. So before, it would always be a case, like I said, we would kind of play them together. But with this, the songs I feel have a lot more kind of dynamic range because there's lots more kind of layers added to them, as opposed to it being just like a garage band and quite plug your guitars in and kind
Mm-hmm.
of just jam it out kind of
Mhm.
thing. This was us kind of tinkering and tweaking and adding stuff during the whole writing process. So for that, I feel like the songs have really benefited from that. But I mean, I personally still call me old school, but I would prefer to be just in the garage with the rest of the guys, just
Fair
Oh, of
right.
enough.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's definitely pros and cons to it, and I think going forward, the songs benefited from doing it the way we did this time. So I'd like to think that maybe we could do a bit of both. You could
Mm-hmm.
maybe do some tinkering and then take them to the garage, play them, and see if they feel good playing them and jamming them out, and then say, yeah, that's great, or we need to add this, we need to add that. But yeah, somewhere in the middle would be perfect, really.
Hell yeah.
Sure. So I want you to tell us your favorite lyric off this album and the meaning behind it.
um, so the probably up here in my hell, there's a lyric that said, dilated pupils, sick from vertigo, living the mantra of taking it slow. And I just feel that that's just a really cool hook. It was just something that I wrote. It just came out like that. And I was like, I just absolutely love that. Again, just real kind of hyper negative, the kind of idea of kind of being head kind of spinning out a bit sometimes. But the reality is that you're not actually living a fast paced life and going out and partying all the time. So that's the living the mantra of taking it slow. But the dilated pupil element comes from the fact that you feel like you should be able to be chilled and relaxed because you're not being part of that kind of party environment, but your head's still an absolute mess as if you were just out, going to like raves and, off your head kind of thing. And I just really like the fact that it's kind of, it plays against each other from, the dilated pupils and then the taking it slow. I don't know. It's something that really, as soon as I wrote that, I was just like, yes, that's the one that stays.
I love that.
Sometimes
that's a really sick lyric.
Sometimes you end up mulling over certain lines for hours and hours, and you come back to it the next day and you try and make something else work, and in the end you think, that'll do. But I always find the best ones are the ones that you're just in your room and then it just comes out like that, and you're like, that is exactly what it should be, and that's why it come natural. Sometimes you best not to overthink it,
For sure. So what song on the album took longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
I'd say there's a couple that took quite long. Panic Attack took quite a long time because a lot of these songs evolved. So like I said, where it would be kind of just a demo that I would, maybe write, or Callan would maybe write. This is one of the ones that I kind of took to them and thought almost this is the kind of finished product already. I was like, this doesn't need to get tweaked much. This is kind of like, I feel like this is decent already. And then when we worked on it with Alan, he was like, yeah, you can change this up, or I'm not quite sure about this there. And he changed up a few things. And at the time I was a bit kind of like protective and a bit like, oh, I'm not sure I quite like what he's done here. And because the calls would be late at night with the time difference and stuff, it would be like midnight and I'd be trying to like fight my corner about, no, this bit needs to stay. And then I listened back to it the next day and I was like, he was 100% right.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was trying to I don't know why I was trying to fight this corner so much. So there was like, I guess things like that he would almost, because at the time I'd be quite stubborn and be like, no, I just don't like this. I think that bit just sucks. Like, I really don't like how that sounds now. It's not how I envisioned it. And then you'd come back to it 3 days later and he'd be like, so have you managed to like have any thoughts on it? And I'd be like, yeah, you're right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think Panic Attack was one of them ones that changed quite a lot. The first time we heard the kind of demo that he added bits on, we felt we were very far away from what we meeting in the middle, and eventually we found like a sweet spot, but it took like sessions and sessions. So, and then the other one was probably Headstone, which is the latest single we released, and I think that's more just the fact that there's quite a lot of dynamic layers in that. A lot of our old record and stuff is just kind of, like I said, chord bashing punk rock kind of stuff. So that just, some of those songs I could just write in 2 hours kind of thing and it just comes out. But this one was like us adding like acoustic guitar, and then like it started off, Callan wrote the actual demo for that in terms of the structure and stuff. But by the end of it, we were adding bits and taking away bits and changing whole sections. And I don't think we've ever had a song kind of as ambitious as that in terms of like how it's quite different than the rest of our stuff. So where it wasn't as natural, I felt that was probably that took quite a long time, I guess.
All right.
And what was the other question? What was my favorite?
Yeah, your personal favorite.
Yeah.
Probably Here in My Hell, which is the one that I said about with that lyric. That's one that we haven't released as a single yet, and I don't think it's going to be a single. It's going to just be a standalone album track, but it's just like 2 minutes long, and it's just, I tell you now, it's just an absolute rager. It's just like foot to the floor.
Right.
And it's just so bouncy, and I'm just a sucker for that, like that just Green Day, punk rock, bounce, and it's just like 100% that. And I just listened to it. I just got a smile on my face from start to finish. It's not the most, I wouldn't say it's the most ambitious or out there song on the record, but you listen to it and it's just over before you know it. But it's just, I just love every single part of it. So I really can't wait for people to hear that.
All right. Hell yeah.
Sure. Okay. So how did the track list for this album come about? Did you guys write the opener to be the opener, closer to be the closer? You kind of shuffle around, listen through a couple of times. What was that process like?
Well, so with the last record, I kind of had the intro song and then the closer. It was kind of already like written like for that purpose kind of thing. With this, we didn't actually kind of know the structure until kind of quite late on till after we actually recorded it and we started playing around with different ways of putting songs in different positions and how that would feel. But obviously I wrote the intro. I had that in my head kind of. I wanted the intro, well, the opening track. It's kind of it's like a 45-second, 50-second kind of like skit almost, as opposed to like a full song. And it's just kind of this real kind of nice melodic thing I just wrote one night, and I was like, that would only fit as like kind of like a lo-fi kind of intro to the record.
Yeah.
So that one was one of the ones that we couldn't really put anywhere else, and we kind of and ahed about whether even putting it as the opener on the record, to be honest, because it's quite different. So if you just press play at the start of the record and that's the first song you hear, you might not realize that we're like a punk rock band, and then it might, that some people might be like, oh, I'm not sure on this is a bit like mellow. But the whole point is I wanted it to be like really kind of minimalistic and just stripped down, just one guitar, one vocal, just kind of a bit kind of dreamy, and then it goes straight into the second song, which is like a headbanger kind of thing. So those ones kind of wrote themselves. But in terms of the rest of the structure, that was kind of, we really did kind of just, that was had right at the end was when we actually finalized that stuff really. So yeah, and it was just trying to make sure that we didn't put too many songs one after another that might kind of, we wanted it to have its ups and downs, the album. We didn't want it just to be front loaded with all the singles and then filler at the back or anything like that. It's about making the right impact by having softer songs that then go into a heavier one. And then it's even more complicated about, you don't want songs with similar tempos and similar vibes right after each other, because otherwise they just kind of get lost.
Yeah,
I think that was one of the problems with our first record, is that, not problems, but if I was to pick holes here, I would probably say that it was quite like kind of one-dimensional, which like unregrettably one-dimensional, like it was just kind of punk rock songs that, like I said, garage rock band songs kind of thing.
Yeah.
But with this, we wanted it to have more kind of ups and downs kind of as it went, so it kind of feels a bit more like not like a story, but it kind of feels like it takes you on a bit more of a journey, as opposed to just every song similar tempo, similar kind of vibe, because the problem is then by the time it gets to the 7th or 8th track, if they're all kind of similar like that, listeners might start thinking, it's like the phrase, like if it's Christmas every day kind of thing, then it's not Christmas, is it? It's like you need the Mondays to make the weekend so good,
Yeah.
exactly.
I appreciate how much thought went into it. So where was your headspace at while you guys are writing this album?
I mean, like as everyone was during the pandemic and stuff, it's cheesy to, I'm not really trying to hang on too much about that, but everyone was having a bit of a shit time. We were locked in. We weren't sure when the end was going to be. If we knew it was going to take this long and go on as long as it was, then maybe it'd be worse. But at that time, that uncertainty of knowing we don't know what's going to happen, like what if we're going to be able to play shows again, but we just got signed to Rude Records a month before the pandemic started. So we went from being like, oh my god, like we've like landed with like a label that we've been following for years, like got a contract. We're talking about working with producers that we want to, writing up a list and stuff. Everything was really exciting. We were supposed to fly out to the States to actually record with Alan in June of 2020, and then we kept delaying it and thinking, oh, flights will probably be allowed in if we delay it to September. And then we were thinking, oh, we'll delay it to November. And then it was like, we need to record this at some point, and we need to get this out there. The label's going to be like, well, we can't just wait for another 3 years. You know, we need like, you know, they signed us for us to put an album out, and we were excited about it as well. So I feel like we kind of had to just kind of make the jump then, just to say, right, we're going to do it in a slightly different way. And we recorded it in the UK, and then Alan mixed it in America, over in the States, obviously. But yeah, the headspace in terms of the writing process was, I don't know, it was obviously very negative, and like out of frustration, and, you know, that uncertainty. And I think a lot of that did come out in the record. I remember writing the song Never Getting Better, which is one of the singles we released, which obviously the album track is kind of, you know, it's kind of that. And I remember that was about a month into the pandemic, and where we were just kind of locked down and stuff. And it was a really sunny day, and I just had my guitar amp plugged in, like a little shitty practice amp, in the front room. Had the windows open because it was so sweltering hot. And I just started playing this like kind of like almost like swingy, like dun 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 dun. And that's why the lyric, the things they won't get better in time, came, because I was just like thinking, you know, that was the mindset at the time, really. Like, you know, I was thinking who knows if it will or if it wouldn't. But I've always, like, with my writing, to kind of like really kind of like hone into those kind of like negative moments. And I wouldn't say overall I'm a really negative person. That's not how I feel 24/7 kind of thing. But when you do have those moments like that, the way that you can deal with it is to be really angry or be really sad. And I kind of have always kind of used music as the outlet to that. So anyone would think by listening to the lyrics on our record that I'm just the most grumpy, miserable person you've ever met. But but the reality is that to write the best music when I'm in that kind of mindset. So I like to deliberately just like put it under a magnifying glass and then just crank it up to 10 how I'm feeling, and say, right, this is how I'm going to just get it all out, you know. So it's just therapeutic, you know, to get it out like that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the mindset wasn't very good at the time, but I mean, that's probably why the songs aren't particularly like chirpy and upbeat.
yeah, fair enough.
So it's safe to assume that if you guys were able to record right before the pandemic started, the album would have been like completely different.
I think it would have definitely had different tones to it, for sure. I mean, the writing process, like I said, would have been different. So maybe the songs wouldn't be as kind of expansive, and it might be a bit more kind of stripped down and more garage band feel. But in terms of the lyrical content and stuff, even before the pandemic, like I said, I've said this in a few interviews before, but I've always liked bands like Saves the Day, when they have that really, they've always been like kind of upbeat, kind of poppier songs and melodic. But the lyrics are really, really, really negative about, like, you know, like taking a toaster in the bath and like gouging your eyes out with forks and stuff like that. And I don't imagine that is something that is a literal thing that
I hope not.
To do, you know. Yeah. But I've always really enjoyed that aspect of the art of making, like, having the kind of dynamic of it kind of being something really melodic, but also just really, really negative and really kind of like striking. And like I said, it is an outlet and it is a reflection of the mood at the time. It's just kind of like cranked up even further for the kind of artistic style that I like to write in. But yeah, I mean, everyone likes writing in a different style. You know, I've never picked a guitar up and wrote a song about a lovely day that I've had, you know, going to the beach or going to the park. So maybe that's something I'll do in the future. But for now, it's exclusively about, you know, times that I'm kind of need that outlet of music. And that's probably why some people might listen and think, is this guy okay? But yeah, I mean, I'm fine. I'm okay.
Okay, good.
You heard it here first. Harry is fine.
yeah, it's fine. Good. I mean, for now anyway. Maybe not in a year's time if we're still in this mess. But
oh God, yeah. So this one should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
Energetic. Energetic, melodic, and fierce.
There you go.
Like
that was
those.
quick. Thank you.
I like fierce.
Yeah, that's good. So in that same train of thought, is there a certain feeling you want your listeners to have while going through this album?
I mean, like I said, people can consume art in different ways. People can write art in different ways. So I'd never tell someone how they should or shouldn't consume something.
Mhm.
I never wanted myself to be a kind of spokesman of like any like community or people like that. I don't feel like I kind of, I respect the hell out of all the fans and anyone that wants to listen to us, but I feel that anyone can listen to it and take it and interpret it in different ways. I just want if people can enjoy it in the same way that I can enjoy writing the songs, or we can enjoy writing the songs, then to me, then that's just amazing. In terms of the feeling and stuff, it's just that it's that negative feeling of the monotonous, day-to-day stuff and all the bullshit that we've all had the last couple of years.
Mhm.
If people can, find comfort in that or can like relate to it, then that's amazing. But some of the songs are just straight up just personal to me, and I wouldn't say they're not generic stuff that would reflect with necessarily with other people. But if it makes people happy by listening to it, then that's just fantastic to me. Whether that makes them happy because they think the songs are catchy and they can tap their foot to it, or whether that means that they can really like relate to some lyrics and stuff, then that's also awesome. But yeah, I'm just grateful for anyone that actually gives us the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, right. For this question, I want you to picture you're on tour. You're at a gas station for a rest stop. You're going in. What is your snack of choice?
Well, first thing, it's not very exciting, but we get a bottle of water or fill up on water, because it seems that every time I'm on tour, you always just, especially if it's in the summer and stuff, you're in a hot van and with loads of sweaty crew and stuff like that. We always tend to go for kind of like bakery stuff. Like when we toured like Europe and stuff, they had some amazing bakeries. In the morning, you'd go in and you'd have to like pay to eat. Oh, sorry, Callan's just messaged me. He might jump in a sec.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if he randomly pops up, then yeah. But yeah, we'd always go for the baked goods in the morning. We'd always get like a black coffee first thing, and then like a croissant and just like some kind of stuff like that to fuel the stomach. We always try and get fruit as well, because the first couple of tours you do, you end up just stopping at McDonald's every day, and then you just feel like just absolute shit after like 2-3 days.
Yeah.
So we made a conscious effort of like just buying fruit, even if it's just having like some like strawberries and bananas or whatever, and just a bottle of water, or like orange juice, just fresh juice, stuff like that. But yeah, obviously there's time just to get chocolate and snacks as well, don't get me wrong. But we try and at least start keeping it healthy, and then by the end of it that just goes out the window and you do just get chocolate.
Yeah.
I love that you guys live large for at least some of the tour. That's great.
Yeah, well, it always seems like a good idea, but then you get to a certain date and then you just feel absolutely horrendous, and it's just so bad.
Yeah.
And then you're back to eating healthy again.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than when you because bands our size, like we're really respectful for it, but we're always like crashing at people on people's floors and stuff like that. So we don't have the luxury of having like a big tour bus and our own beds and like facilities and stuff like that to feel fresh. Normally it's kind of like, right, band calls at 9 a.m, wake up at like 8 and be like, we got time to like have a shower quick, and then it's just like, right, quickly, let's just first thing get a coffee, some water, try and have some type of fruit or something like that. But I always feel terrible after like the third day on tour anyway, so probably makes no difference by the end of it.
Fair enough. So if the band was
still fun.
If the band was Dish, what dish would the band be and why?
A vindaloo curry, because they're very spicy.
Ooh, that sounds really good.
Spicy and fierce.
There you go. There you go. And then you tied in one of your words. Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
So for these last couple of questions, we're actually going to shift away from music, if that's okay with you.
Okay. Sure.
So we're actually going to go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
what would my last meal be with a drink?
Mhm.
That really is a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't know, because obviously I really I love, like, steak. I love my mum always makes fantastic bangers and mash, so sausages, mashed potato and gravy.
Mhm.
So maybe something kind of like quite hearty like that. It's not the most exciting thing I know, or the best answer, but probably something that's kind of like wholesome and has some kind of like, not emotional attachment, but like as a kid you like kind of thing.
Yeah.
Probably
Okay.
something like that. And as far as a drink, just something very, very strong, because
Yeah.
put me out of the mindset, a bit of worrying, I guess. Probably some, I don't know, some like neat whiskey or something like that, maybe. Neat
Okay.
whiskey, sausages, and mashed potato with gravy.
All right.
That's
Perfect.
perfect.
So if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
In one fictional world,
Yes.
A world where there's peace and happiness, and the sports football team that I support wins every game.
I like that. That's perfect. That's perfect.
It doesn't stress me out on a weekly basis. That would be nice.
Exactly. You should just always know.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be great. Everyone would be loving life. The sun would be shining. Good food, good vibes. Get a good night's sleep. Wake up feeling fresh. Turn the TV on. Watch my team. We win everything. Win all the cups. It'd be great.
Perfect.
That's perfect. All right. So I have the honor of asking the last question. Every single person spoken to has actually said it is the most important question.
Okay.
What is your favorite color?
Red.
You have a specific shade of red?
Probably just kind of like that kind of like lighter red, the kind of candy apple red.
Ooh.
I remember when I was younger, I really wanted my first guitar. I just wanted a candy apple red Stratocaster, but obviously like not a Fender, like a cheaper one, because that was, I was like 12 years old. No way was my dad gonna spend
Exactly.
like £600 or something like that on a Fender for me, because for all he knew, I might have just given up after 2 weeks, kind of thing.
Exactly.
And I remember seeing one at a local music store, being like, oh my god, like that's the one. And I remember thinking, when I'm older, one day I'm gonna own a red Fender Stratocaster. And I did buy one a couple of years ago, actually, but I actually sold it last year because we're a bit tight. We're a bit tight for cash, and it was my kind of backup guitar. So I couldn't really justify having a second one. Obviously, when we start playing shows regularly and stuff like that again, we'll obviously have to make sure I get a second guitar like that. But at the time, I think we needed the cash to front for the album and stuff like that. So I had to sell it. So that was a bit disheartening. But I did finally get my dream. I got my dream, at least, from my childhood.
Yeah.
Hopefully
You gotta get
I'll
another
it again.
Yeah, exactly. When in the future, for sure, I'll definitely get one, even if I just hang it up on my wall just to say I said I was going to get one of them when I was old.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as Gloria said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
No, just obviously make sure you check our album out, Never Better. Next month, check all the singles out. They're on Spotify, all of the videos that are on YouTube, on Rude Records. And yeah, we've got a release show on the 23rd, I believe, of February in London, UK. So if anyone's about for that, listening to this, obviously come down. It's going to be a great show. Got some great support bands with us. But yeah, just thank you so much for anyone that's checked out the song so far, and anyone that supported us over the years. We really appreciate it. Can't wait for you guys to get stuck into it.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, thank you for now. That's been Harry from Weatherstate, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.